Edward, Ebenezer, Jeremiah Brown. I'm a football supporter of Ipswich Town. Wherever they play, you'll find me. I haven't missed a game since I was 3, with me scarf and me rattle and a big rosette.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of We Follow the Town, a weekly show looking into all things Ipswich. And today we have a packed show for you all. We'll be talking to our guest Curtis Yates about his artwork. We'll take a look into the news. We'll preview Ipswich's visit to Pompey. And of course, there'll be a quiz at the end of the show where you will be in with a chance of winning a pair of I Follow tickets. And just before we get into today's show, just a shout out to our new sponsor, Julian Hughes. We are absolutely delighted to have Julian Hughes on board. He is a golf coach at Old Joe's Golf and is a member of the World Golf Teachers Federation. Whether you are just starting out on your golfing journey or you are an advanced player, Julian is the perfect coach for you. For more information, you can email Julian at juleshughes1965@gmail.com, or you can phone him on 07382 3834 199. Mention We Follow the Town for a 20% discount. And now back into today's show, because as I just said, we have some fantastic guests for us, and of course our regulars as well. And I'm going to go on to you first, Curtis, because of course we played Fleetwood on Tuesday, a very boring game. I don't think there's much to talk about, but just give me your opening thoughts on the game, and should we be up in arms about the loss?
I think there should be a little bit more worry than what there should be. I'm not saying go start gunning for the manager, but I think when you see a squad that quite honestly we have a good midfield, but when you've got a defence that likes to hoof it from back to front for about 90 minutes of a game, and they clearly aren't listening to what's being said from Cook when you hear him shouting from the sidelines. That's the perk of I Follow, is that you can watch without any commentary. I think when you can hear him and they're not listening. I feel sorry for Jackson. He must have got strain on his neck trying to reach some of those. Like it was horrendous. And I thought, I don't think there's anything good you could gather from that game. I think it was worthless. I think the club needs a massive clear out, and I think the youngsters. I'm of the opinion. I think even some of our youngsters are very overrated for what they are, and there's a reason why. There's a reason why we've easily kept hold of the zone for a long time. There's a reason why we've easily done it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the less said about Fleetwood, probably the better from me.
So, Leigh, give us your thoughts on the game. And, of course, Cole Scouse was playing in that game. He made his first 19 minutes of the season. First of all, as I just said, give us your thoughts on the game. And how do you think Cole Scouse played? Because, in my opinion, he struggled a bit.
Well, to be honest, I think I should just keep my £10 in the pocket ready. It was woeful, wasn't it? From start to finish, we weren't playing very well at all. Hardly made mistakes. Jackson never had any at the service. What he was provided with, it just seemed to be a bit lax. There was no effort. There's no enthusiasm. There's no determination. There's no attitude. It was completely it was wrong, really, wasn't it? Like we watched on Saturday, Plymouth. Yeah, Plymouth. We played pretty well against Plymouth, but then on Tuesday, it was just absolutely shocking. I wish I never bothered. Really, I watched it till the 90th minute, and I just thought, why did I bother sitting my way through that 90 minutes and just to watch just a poor show? When I was looking at the East Anglia Daily Times, on the stats, I don't think anyone got above 5. I think it was. And
wow.
It was just shocking how these players, most of these players are actually paying for their contract. They're paying for their livelihood. So, with Cole Scouse, he's been really rusty. He's only played like 90 minutes in the whole season. So, yeah, I think we should just move on and wait for Saturday's game against Portsmouth.
So, Jamie, I don't know whether there's anything more you can add on your thoughts about Fleetwood. Do you reckon that we're being a bit harsh about the performance? Should we maybe look at this and say, okay, Paul Cook hasn't been in charge for very long, these things happen, or do we have every right to be up in arms about that result?
It was one of the worst performances I've seen in a long, long time. I've got to say, they couldn't pass the ball to each other. It was shocking from minute one. But I think you've got to say it was that bad. It was a bit of a one-off because in the previous games under Cook, we hadn't played fantastically. We weren't like that, and that's not how he wants us to play. Something wasn't right that night. No, I don't think there's any reason for alarm bells. We're in good form up to that point. It was an off day, and I think unless there's a repeat of it tomorrow, I think it was just that bad that it was just fun. There's no point analysing it too much from a Paul perspective or anyone. I think it's just judge it on further performances.
I think my issue with the performance per se was, I think we all know that Cook wants to play one up front. I think we all are resigned to it. I think the issue with it is the fact that we know, never mind this season, but we knew towards their back end of last season, we knew one up front just doesn't work with these players that we have. And I think for now, I mean, I had this little argument with someone. Like he doesn't have a plan B for now. And with this set of players, I don't think they can work plan A. I don't think they can do plan A. I don't think we have the quality in to do that. Next season, give them a pre-season, give them new players. You might be able to do it. But this set of players, I think they are very rigid, and I think they can't expand the skill set. That's my opinion. Anyway.
So, Curtis, do you reckon we could play a 4-4-2? Because we've had managers who have historically not played 4-4-2. Of course, Paul Lambert would never play a formation like that. But do you reckon that Paul Cook could actually try experimenting with a 4-4-2, play two up front, Caden, Norwood? Do you reckon that would work?
Well, I never ever understood it when managers said we can't play 4-4-2. We played Jackson and Norwood up front like last season. I mean, Tranmere away was a perfect example. They brought, I think it was Norwood they brought on to make it 4-4-2. We ended up winning the game. We can play 4-4-2 now. Again, I think it's not so much we can't play it. I think it is down to managers' preference of how they see their style going forward. The players
4-3-2-1. We can't play with a one up front. We can play with two, but they seem to persist with the one. And
exactly.
It just narrows your chances.
And like you say there, yeah, it does narrow your chances. But like you say, one of the worst performances I've seen was Fleetwood like the other day. And I mean, you can only feel sorry for Jackson that he's come back into the squad and he's chasing these loose balls, and you've got one man up front who's. I mean, I like Jackson. I think he offers a lot more, but he's not a one up front man. And I don't know who we get into to be that one up front. It'll probably come good next season, but for this season there needs to be a plan B. I won't stress it enough.
So, Leigh, we have the players for a 4-4-2, don't we? So why not, maybe against Portsmouth, actually play a 4-4-2? Because in my opinion, we have the perfect players, as I just said, to use that formation. Will Edwards could play on the right. We could probably play Judge out on the left. That would probably work, wouldn't it?
It would, or you could play the diamond formation. But it's just going to be one of those things. It's just up to Paul Cook. But as Curtis was saying about Jackson is not just a one-man striker. He needs to support, especially with say like Norwood. Maybe I don't think Freddie Sears won't be here much longer for us. So it's just going to be one of those. But I think we need another centre forward. Even if we go down to the lower leagues, like in the conference maybe, or even League Two, because Cambridge United, they're doing pretty well. I think Mullins are quite a good striker. I think he's top goal scorer at the moment. So I think he will come in and do a good job for us if that's what Paul Cook is looking. But Paul Cook has said he doesn't want to play the 4-4-2. But you see on the Saturday's game against Plymouth, we were actually, when we were pressing their defence, we were actually going into a 4-4-2 formation with Parrott and Jackson, or even Norwood. That they were doing that sort of formation. But I won't have Judge on the left hand side of the, because he's not a winger. He's attacking midfielder. He's the camp player. So I think he's going to be wasted if we play him out there. So it's more we need looking at the wingers like Lancaster, Edwards, Bennett's. But I know Bennett's is only here until the end of the season, so he'll be gone. But yeah,
Dan maybe he's back, isn't he?
Yeah, but then we can look at other players as well. Yeah, look at what happened with Lincoln City. With Johnson, he was a good player. Rogers, who we were looking to get in the January transfer window, and we missed out on him. So I just feel that we need like the teams in two, so the right back and the right midfielder goes together. The forward should be two players, even the midfield. We just can't seem to work the 4-5-1. So I would personally go back 4-4-2. But what do I know? I'm just a fan trying to voice the opinions. But it's up to Paul Cook. He's got 12 games to go. But I think we'll see a lot of players leaving in the summer, personally.
So now let's get on to the thoughts of you listeners, people who are interacting with the show, and I really appreciate it. Please get your thoughts down below, get your opinions, get your questions in. We really do appreciate it. Harrison Smith, I think the players are completely to blame, not happy with any of the performances. Julian Hughes, thoughts on Tuesday night, gutless, clueless, and none of them looks like they were playing for a new contract. And that is interesting, Jamie, because, of course, a lot of contracts do finish at the end of the summer. Is it maybe time that these players should be performing for that new contract?
Yes, but I think it's also time that a lot of them moved on. There's too much dead wood in the squad. Cook needs to implement his own styles with players that are right for the system. Vincent Young's back tomorrow. We're all pleased about that. Players he likes fullbacks. He had that lad at Wigan, Robinson, who's on tonight for Fulham. He said, they're a massive part of the game nowadays. I think once he gets one of them on either side, because as much as Ken Lock's doing quite well, we can soon drop a 4 out of 10 out of nowhere. So I think he's going to want to get one on both sides, i.e., probably fit Vincent Young and bring one in. And then in the forward areas, you see some people, they're going to go. I can't see Skuse playing again after the end of the season. There's going to be a wholesale change in the summer.
Agreed. Yes.
And he's going to bring in players that want to play his system and can play his system. That's when you can start to judge him. You can't start judging him now because he's working with players who are not capable. Realistically, they're not. On paper they should be. They're not the likes of Emir Hughes. He'll go. But he's a good player on paper. He's a good player on paper. He was. Same as Sears, both massive injuries. But they've been at the club too long. Some of these people have been there 6 years, 7 years, and they've never really warranted that space in the team. I think he's somebody who will do it his way. And I think the summer will change either in League One or if he does manage to work things out, possibly in the Championship.
So, Curtis, in the summer, should we spend big or should we maybe look at actually playing all of our youngsters? Do you reckon the youngsters are the players we should maybe be prioritising?
I think this club has to. Well, let's face it. I think if Evans is still there, we're not going to spend big. We will continue to try and pick from the varied release lists of other League One clubs. We will try and pick up as much as we can with half decent talent. I think I'm of the opinion that a lot of our youngsters just aren't that good. I think the problem is we have a very well respected academy, but yet these players that come through, like your Ben Falami, who broke on the scene in the club, now at Melbourne, and again not pulling up any trees there, so not great. Ben Morris, unfortunately, has been ravaged with injury, so unfortunately, you can see him moving on. I mean, Dobra again, he will be a good. I hope he will be a good player, but he is very, very lightweight. He is very lightweight at the moment, and if you want him to be almost like your linchpin in midfield, I mean, who do you then? What position do you play him in? Is he a centre attacking mid? Does he take up a role of either Downs or Dizelle? I mean, Dizelle, I wouldn't class Dizelle as a youngster anymore. He's been in and around that squad now for a few years, so he needs to produce. And again, he proved it on against Fleetwood that he's not consistent enough. And this whole, well, if he played in the Championship with better teams, he'd be a lot better. I don't understand that logic. I don't understand it, because if you're a really good player, then you stand out amongst the class. We've all seen the good players that stand out amongst the terrible, and yet for some reason Dizelle's the one player who I've seen who's get uncopious amounts of praise because he's one of our own. Unfortunately, the one of our own, you need to be good enough, and I think our academy line just. I mean, we thought Ryan was good at one point, and whilst he was an all right player, that's all he was. He was an all right player, but because he was one of our own, we always picked him up. And I think we have to spend money, but Evans, it ain't going to happen. Whether this ownership deal gets back on track, then I'm more hopeful. But I think unfortunately, I think we're looking at very much bargain basement type players this July. I think so.
So, Callie Bielsa, and hello, Callie. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Edwards, I'm convinced, just had a purple patch earlier in the season. And Harrison Smith, here's an interesting comment. He might be controversial. I don't think 4-4-2 worked last season. We didn't play well with it, and I think we got lucky with it. I don't think we're particularly strong in any other position either at the moment. Did we play a 4-4-2 last season? Somebody correct me on that. I'm not sure whether we did or not.
Yeah. We did at the start of the season.
Start of the season, of course, yeah.
We might have been winning them games and being lucky because we had two strikers on the field to finish one chance if we was getting one. I think that's the thing. We wasn't brilliant to watch the start of last season, but we was scoring enough goals with Jackson and Norwood up front. And then when we stopped playing with them two, we stopped scoring goals and we slid down the table.
ITFC Tweedy, no desire in the team. Chambers only player playing for the shirt, which I would actually agree with. He's been a fantastic servant for the club. Harry, great news about Ben Morris returning to fitness. Now, Leigh, Ben Morris, he is, of course, another youth product of ours. He's been injured for quite a while. Should Ben Morris maybe be given a go, or should he maybe be shipped out on loan in the summer?
Why not? It's Paul Cook's got he's got all these players to work his magic with, but like I said, it's going to be a max exodus at the end of the season. You know, all these, even the academy players, the first teamers, the out of contract players. You know, it's just what's going to happen at the end of the season. We could still make the playoffs. I would like to see that we make the playoffs, but if we have another poor result on Saturday, you might not think that, because we've still got to play Wigan. I think we've still got to play Charlton as well. They've got a new manager as well coming in as well. So that's going to be a very difficult game as well. And of course, Charlton are in that sixth position and we're just a point outside in seventh. So, yeah, why not give Ben Morris a go? Why not give all of the youngsters a go, really? Because you've got Zach Brown in there as well. He's another a forward. He's been scoring for the under 23s and under 18s. So, yeah, why not? Just try them.
So one last one before you go on to Curtis Yates and his art. Glass account, are the fans to blame at all? Can't be easy for players like Norwood who get a lot of abuse on Twitter. Should we not back our boys? Now, Jamie, that is actually quite an interesting statement, really, because there has been a lot of controversy on social media surrounding these players, especially James Norwood, who the other day wished his team, Tranmere Rovers, his former team, Tranmere Rovers, good luck on Twitter, and got a lot of abuse for it. So do you reckon that the fans are partially to blame for the way they conduct themselves around the players on social media?
I don't know if they're to blame for the results, but I don't understand that. Why wouldn't he wish them luck? He used to play for them and didn't sign a new contract with them and came to us. So I don't understand that at all. You see a lot of abuse on Twitter. Saw some the other day to NCR. People like that should have their accounts taken off of them because it can't be beneficial in any which way to the players. I understand it. I get frustrated like we all do. But I don't get it. People seem to want to have a go at Norwood. Yeah, he's there to be shot at a bit on Twitter. But I personally, I've said it on here before, I like the fact that we can engage with them a little bit more. Don't need it to be negative towards them, which you're not going to get anything positive out of.
So continue to get your thoughts and opinions in. We really appreciate them. So do keep them coming. And of course, later on in the show, we will be discussing Portsmouth. And of course, there'll be the competition where you will be in with a chance of winning a pair of I Follow tickets. So Curtis, let's get on to your artwork, because you of course do a lot of artwork, and your artwork is absolutely wonderful, can I say? And you do a wide range of work. If I can just get some up on my screen right now. Here's one you did on Sir Bobby Robson standing outside the Cobbold stand. Dwight McNeil, Burnley youngster, Burnley wonder kid. Can I call him a wonder kid? I'm not sure whether I can. And here is, apologies for that, a Black Lives Matters piece of artwork right here. But first of all, before we get into detail about the processes of making these art and you know, like the programs you actually use, how did you get into Ipswich? When did you first become a fan?
It was as you can very much tell by my strong northern accent, it was very much a case of, it was, I would say, genetically passed down from my father. I had the misfortune, should I say, of travelling very long miles to games, and luckily for me dad and myself, he also had a friend from down where we lived in Blackpool who also supported town, so we would obviously jockey rides together and both then go far and wide for these games. It's one of them. It's been a pleasure sometimes, but equally when you've been to games such as, well, when you've travelled from Blackpool to watch games like Leicester when we got battered 5-0, Peterborough when you get battered 7-1. Luckily, watched us get beat by Blackpool, so that was a short journey when we got beat 6-0 away at Blackpool. So that was a short. That was pretty much down the road from me there. But it's one of them. The losses, and then when you experience all that heartache and everything, it kind of gets ingrained in you, doesn't it? Luckily for me, I was brought up on the club that my dad supported. And then obviously the reason why my dad did was because he got to actually experience the good times. Unfortunately for me, I've had a one failed playoff run where we got battered by our closest rivals. So that's my high. That's probably my high point of being a town fan. But it's one of them that I'll take the losses and I'll take the wins, and it's pretty much ingrained into my blood now. So yeah, that's where I came from.
So you more or less just answered my next question. I was going to ask you, what is the best game you've ever attended at Ipswich? Would it be the playoff finals? Would it maybe be another game at Portman Road?
Okay. So I would have to say the actual best game that I've been to. It's a toss up between the two, and it's a very odd two that I would have to go for. Now, there was a game at Blackpool away when I think Paul Taylor scored, Frank Nouble scored, and Daryl Murphy scored in the 90th minute. Now, what made that game so fantastic was the fact that if I remember rightly, I think Stephen Dobby might have scored for Blackpool, and I think we might have gone in something like 1-0 down, and I think they quickly made, and then we went 2-1 up by Paul Taylor and Nouble. But then I think they scored or something in the 87th minute with Stephen Davies, and then luckily Daryl Murphy popped up in the 90-something minute to give us the win of 3-2. So it would either have to be that one purely for atmosphere, or I would have to say Blackburn away when we just scabbed into the playoffs. I would say that was one of the weirdest atmospheres that I've been in for a long time. Bearing in mind the fact that, what was it? I think was it Derby versus Reading, the game that we were relying on for us to sneak into the playoffs. And I think Ali El Hadzi scored. No, I think he saved a last-minute penalty from Derby to basically get us into the playoffs. And I remember looking to the guy across from me, and he's there. Like he's got his earphones in, and he's there going, they've got a penalty. And then you've got all these fans crowding around, and then luckily he then shouted that Al Habsi saved it. And then the atmosphere on that day. I mean, we lost the game, but just knowing that we were 2-3 games off possibly reaching the Premier League, because it was the hope. It was the hope at that point that made it so fantastic. But then obviously you go on to watch the playoff semi-final, and we were never going up. We were never going up in those games. Never, not a chance. But it was between those two games for me that they would all be the best ones, I would have to say.
So just to quickly mention to those of you who are interacting with us in the chat, can we please keep the messages clean? Can we please be kind to one another? Because of course, we're all Ipswich fans. We would all just love to talk about our love for the club, and not only of you. So please keep the comments clean. But ITFC Tweedy here says, did you end up buying that new printer, Curtis? We're going to talk about the processes in regards to how you make the art in a minute. But what is it about a printer? Is that...
It's on its way. I had a few people ask me whether they could get my prints in a much larger size. It is on its way, but luckily there are ways of going about getting a decent sized printer without having to pay over the odds in the UK. So I'm getting it sent in from afar. So it is on its way. When that turns up, well, I think DHL will tell me that, but it is on its way. It is on its way.
So again, talk us through the processes of how you make your artwork. Do you make it all online, like on, I don't know what you call it, like one of those tablets where you can draw on? There's probably a name for that. Apologies about that. Or do you simply do it all by hand? How do you actually make your artwork?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously everything starts with putting it in a sketchbook and everything. But I think what I learned, especially throughout my time, at university, was, I mean, I'm currently in my final year, so because I took a year out and I'm in my final year now, and I'm studying graphic design. But I take great pride in saying that I'm a graphic designer who hates graphic design. I absolutely despise it. I couldn't hate it any more than what I do. But I love illustration. That is an avenue past it. Luckily, I was one of the, I'd probably have to say, fortunate/unfortunate ones who lost the job during this whole crisis. So then I invested in this. And luckily the iPad saw me through a rough time. And it's one of them. I thought one day about making art and just seeing where it can go, and a bit of exposure for it. And then luckily, as I started then putting it out more and interacting with more fans, it it kind of snowballed. It kind of snowballed on, really. Luckily for myself, I mean, the process isn't too difficult. It's you download an app called Procreate, and as long as you know how to use all the pens on there, then it's really not that difficult. But people seem to like the work that I create, and like I say, I've received interesting messages from the club. I've received interesting messages from the club. I've worked with Burnley, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. Really, I've had good interactions with especially ex-players of town. I mean, it's allowed me to do a lot of things that I just didn't think were possible. Like I've gained contacts within, like Dan Curry. Absolutely. I mean, I had a fantastic interview with him only a couple of weeks ago regarding hate and discrimination within football. Absolutely, the man is fantastic. He will literally help with anything. He's honestly, he will take time out of your day to help and give you advice on anything. But it's my passion for making this art is just it's second to none. I mean, when someone puts an order in, I mean, as some people will probably attest to, I spend uncopious amounts of times on it. I'll be awake till 2-3 in the morning trying to get something finished so I can get it out the next day. I'm sure Le'll say himself that he's received a message off me from about 3 in the morning. So I'm one of those people. I would say I probably have some kind of OCD when it comes to getting work done. I can't, if I start it, I have to finish it. I can't leave it, otherwise it just gets on my mind. But drawing's great. I can't speak about it enough. It helped me at a very low point, especially during all this pandemic. And it's helped me seeing other people share it, other people I enjoy it, and it was never even a point of wanting to sell it. I was very much prepared just to get as much exposure as possible, because after all this, I just want to get back into a tattoo studio and do what I can do. But it's another skill that I've added on, so yeah, it's fantastic.
So before we get into the news, tell people where they can find your artwork and where they can find you, of course, on social media to look at your artwork. Sorry.
So the best way to contact me and just see my work is either at Yates Tattoos on Twitter, or the same handle on Instagram. I put absolutely everything on there, and that's not just football related. It's fingers crossed. Come the 12th of next month, I'll be back in the studio. So there'll probably be a lot more flash designs to tattooing, and obviously I'm sure there'll be a northern section of fans who might even pass on the street. So if they see it, then they can just get in contact with me with anything. I'm willing to take on any job. It's not an issue for me. I like new things. All good.
So let's get on to the news, and thank you very much for sharing your passion on art with us. I think you are very, very talented, and I really enjoy looking at your work. And I think a lot of us can say the same, but on this day in 2016, who did we play? And I was going to originally save this for the quiz later on, and this one is actually for you, Leigh, because on this day in 2016, we lost 1-0 to a struggling Championship side away from home. And there is a clue: Leon Best scored away from home. So who was the side?
It's going to be Rotherham United.
Rotherham United. Somebody said Nottingham Forest.
Oh, close.
And real quickly, are you on Instagram, Curtis?
Yes, let me tell you what. I'll have to double check it, make sure that it is right. Yeah. So it's Yates' Tattoos. So it's YXTSEYS for Yates', and then tattoos as you would. It'll be there. You'll see it. you type in YXTSE and you'll see it. It's not a problem.
And somebody said Nottingham Forest, although I don't think it was Nottingham Forest. I don't think they were the side we lost 1-0 to. And of course, as I just said, we're going to get into the news now. And Paul Kirk, in his post-match press conference, he admitted that the side were really poor when beaten 2-0 at Fleetwood Town. And he said that the players need to carry a bit more weight on their shoulders. Now, we briefly talked about this earlier on in the show, but do you reckon, Leigh, that the players are actually playing for the shirt, or do you reckon that they're purely playing for themselves?
Well, to be honest, they should be playing for the shirt, really. But like we said earlier on, it's just going to be probably people are playing for themselves. They need that contract to survive, or they've got to find they've got to find their own club, haven't they? So it's about Paul Cook trying to get these players on his side, and and try and prove to us Ipswich fans that they should be worthy of playing for the shirt. But at the moment, I haven't seen not enough effort, not enough attitude for some of these players, and some of them are likely to have like a 5 out of 10 in those stats what we had earlier on.
And Jamie, so Paul Cook also said in the post-match press conference, is it pressure weighing too heavily on the players? No. And he basically accused the journalists of dragging them into the discussion. Now, would you let go of the players who aren't necessarily playing for the shirt? Because in my opinion, it's fairly obvious to actually pick out who's not playing for the shirt and who is playing for the shirt. In my opinion, Luke Chambers is one of those players who is playing for the shirt. So would you maybe look at changing the club's infrastructure and the type of personality that we sign?
I think they all will say that they want to play for the shirt when they come. I think a lot of people weren't playing for Lambert. You can see that, but I think people will play for Cook. His enthusiasm makes you want to play for him. I'd want to play for him. I wouldn't want to play for Lambert, who's constantly taking swipes at everyone. You look at Cook, and he's so happy to be there. Not because he's lucky to get that job. It's a good fit for everyone. You don't know who you're going to sign. When you're signing someone, you don't know what they're going to do. I mean, if we start getting rid of the loans and we have people who are at the club because they actually play for us and not using us as a stepping stone, whilst loans are effective, then that might be a way to bridge that slightly.
And elsewhere in news, KVY returns to the side against Portsmouth. Town boss Paul Cook has revealed that right back Kane Vincent-Young will be on the bench at Portsmouth tomorrow, ending the former Colchester man's 17-month injury absence. And the last time the 25-year-old played for Town was in a 3-1 win at Southend. Now, Jamie, how important is it that we have KVY back? Could he be an important player heading into the end and what should hopefully be a push for the playoffs?
He'll get injured on the bus up to Portsmouth. No, he's massive. He's when fit, he's the best fullback in the league. Someone put a clip up on Twitter earlier of his highlights as such. It's a couple minutes long. I was watching it. The bits of skill he has in tight spaces gives us a much better option of fullback than someone like Chambers, who's done a reasonable job this season, but it gives you so much more dynamicism. Fluidity going forward. He's a really, really good player. You keep him fit, and I think if you keep him fit towards the end of the season, and we're still in League One, I think he'll be in the Championship next season.
So, Leigh, do you reckon that KVY is a player who we shouldn't be rushing back? Because he was rushed back last time and he immediately got injured again. So should we maybe, I don't know, wrap him in cotton wool? Or should we maybe look at just pushing him onto the pitch for more game time?
To be honest, I don't think he should be rushed back. I still think Chambers may play at that right back. You've still got Matheson still here on loan, so he's still here for the last couple of months, and I don't think we should rush him back too soon, because if he goes back on that pitch tomorrow and then he shuts down again, he's going to be out for another 17 months or even longer. So we need to be very careful with him, but he's definitely a decent player when he's on his game. Like Jamie said, he's one of the best fullbacks in the league. So just not to rush him back. That'd be fine for me anyway.
So Julian Hughes, and a shout out to Julian Hughes, our new sponsor. If KVY stays fit, will Chambers be dropped, or do you reckon he would be moved to centre back? Now, give us your thoughts on that, Curtis. Do you reckon that he could maybe vie for Luke Chambers' position in the squad, or do you reckon it would simply shift Luke Chambers to the position of centre back?
I think this is Luke Chambers' last season at the club. I think KVY will have that position sewn up and ready for next season. I think this is his last season. I think this is his farewell. He's obviously going to go and play for. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back at an old club like Northampton. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to a club like that. KVY's got that. He's got that place sewn up for next season. That's if Cook's got other ideas, because we know that Vincent Young played. I think he played left back at Colchester, not to forget. So whether he sees Kenlock as a strong out and out starter for next year, I mean, we all had our doubts as to whether he could cut it. And again, maybe Kenlock had a rough game the other day. Like James said the other day. It was a rough game for everyone. I think it was very much a one-off, but they've now got people to try and put that behind them. Like I say, Chambers. I think Chambers is out at the end of this season. I think we will all give him the fond farewell that he deserves, because I mean he's a great servant. He's not, unfortunately for him, it's not been the best. It's not been the best career at our club for him. Stagnant in the Championship and then a relegation on his CV. Not amazing, but he is in the top 10 appearance makers, and you don't get that without having some kind of likeable quality. I mean, I saw Daniel Barnard say there that Chambers will be amongst the management team. He wants another 2-3 years. You can tell. You can tell with the way he speaks and with the way he even speaks. He's not retiring in the next year. He's got 2 or 3 more years in him, at whether it be this level or he might even drop a level. The man lives and breathes football, so he will not want to retire anytime soon. I mean, you see players like Coppinger at Doncaster. Like, what is he? 39 now.
He's 40. He's actually 41.
Yeah. So like you see players like him. There is absolutely no chance will Chambers retire anytime soon. Same with Hughes.
Imagine if he did.
Yeah. He's always come across well under managers. Yeah. I've always been in the case that I do think this year he shouldn't have. I don't think he should have been allowed to reach the appearances that he has done. But that's not his fault. That's due to the players we've had available. I think had we had a Vincent Young fit, then he'd have very much been filling the bench, or if not that, he'd have been taking up a centre back role very intermittently with our centre back options. But yeah, I don't think we'll have anything to worry about if he can stay fit. I think it's very much a change of the guard from the end of this season. So I think Vince Young will have an easy ride if he can stay out of the treatment room.
Now, stay tuned for the show, because, of course, we do have a quiz coming up later, and, of course, the Pompey preview. So, Jamie, Daniel Bernard just said here that Chambers will become a part of the management team next season. Do you reckon that Chambers is a future Ipswich captain? Because he has the passion for the club. He's obviously emotional about where we are as a club in regards to the fact that we are in League One. So again, would he make the perfect manager for us in the future?
I don't know. I've got nothing really to base that on. Just because he's been a good servant and a good captain, I don't know if he'll be a good manager. I don't know what sort of football he wants to play. I don't know, to be honest, whether he will or not. I think he will. I agree. He'll probably be, if he does retire, he will be with us in some capacity. His family settled, and friends and everything down here. So I don't think that he's going to be moving anywhere. But whether he'll make a good manager, I have no idea at this moment in time, because not everyone who's a good player is a good manager. And whilst he's been a good servant, he hasn't been that good a player the last couple of years. He's just been consistently available, and you cannot help but admire his professionalism and endeavour. But it's the same with people saying Kieran Dyer for manager. I'm not fully with that. What are we basing that on? We're not a club. We can't afford to take any chances on people. You know, we don't know who Cook will be, but you can't get much more of a safe bet at the moment, given on what he's done. Which it would be a complete gamble with Chambers. It could be the best decision ever. We just don't know.
So let's, of course, talk about the Portsmouth game, because this weekend it is an early kickoff, unfortunately. We do play Portsmouth, who are 10th in the league table. They haven't won in 5 games. And, of course, their manager was sacked and the Cowley brothers have come in. And right here, I do have some graphics. Portsmouth, well, I didn't realise I was going to fill up the screen, so apologies. Portsmouth do generally play with a different formation, and this is the formation that they generally play with. And they've been playing with attacking midfielders up front as of late. Now, Leigh, talk us through their formation, their style of play, and what we should maybe expect from them.
So with this formation, you can have a look at it. You can say that you're playing the 3 centre defenders there, but it's more like a 5 at the back. So you've got the wing backs in Leigh. I think Leigh Brown and Bolton there. They will be the wing backs, and they'll be bombing down the touch lines on either side. Then you've got Cannon, Naden, and Close. They're going to be their central midfielders. They'll probably be very compact. And then, of course, you've got Ronan Curtis and you've got Ryan Williams up front. But they're not actually strikers, as you were saying there, Ben. They're more of attacking midfielders. So it's going to be interesting to see, because Curtis is more... He does all the set pieces, the corners. He does all the free kicks. I did watch the Peterborough highlights back, and he seemed like to have all the specialist free kicks and corners, as was the same. But he'll be one to watch, because he'll definitely try and shoot, especially if he gets anywhere near the penalty box. And of course, so it's going to be an interesting game. But as you were saying, that they haven't won in 5 games. They lost to Peterborough, of course. They lost to Salford in the trophy on penalties. But I thought the goalkeeper for them, he played really well. He saved them so many times in that game. So I think he got man of the match in that game. Sunderland 2-0 win, but you would expect that to be happening. But then the most going down into the fixtures, they get the Northampton game there, where they got beat 4-1. So it's going to be an interesting game on Saturday, really.
And as Harrison Smith says right there, and then along comes Ipswich. But Curtis, Marcus is injured. Ellis Harrison is out for the rest of the season. Ellis Harrison, of course, used to play for us. Do you reckon that gives us the chance of winning? Because Portsmouth obviously have a weakened squad.
I mean, based on the formation that we've just seen there, as I mentioned against Fleetwood, we didn't have a game plan. We very much got it from the back and hoofed it straight up to the front. Now, that means that our midfield are pretty much nullified. And if they are as nullified as they were against Fleetwood, then we're in for some real trouble, because that midfield, whether they've got strikers or not, that will run rampant over us. We will not be able to cope with that. And if our main force of defence is to get it right back up to our striker, then it'll work. I think what it does is it certainly takes me back to when we played him in the FA Cup that went to extra time?
Yeah, the FA Cup, yeah.
Yeah, it takes me back to that game, and those weren't good memories either. So I think it's going to be a tough game. I think if can work some kind of miracle, I think we might have a win. But I wouldn't say I'm hopeful for tomorrow. I think it'll be a very good game. And even Cook says himself in his pre-match today, even he knows how tough of a place Fratton Park can be to go. I mean, that's with the fans, because they're always on top of you. But even as a ground, it's a very narrow it's a narrow but extremely long pitch, so it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
And of course, we're going to get on to the competition in a moment. But to end up this bit on Portsmouth, I'm going to go around and ask you all who you would pick, to be in the starting lineup against Portsmouth. And I'm going to come to you first, Jamie. Who would you pick in the starting lineup against Portsmouth? And okay, I'm going to throw this one out there. Would you maybe start Luke Mattison?
Yeah, I think so. I think Chambers played a lot. He probably could do with a rest. Freshness of Matheson could do well. If it was me, I'd go 4-4-2, but I'd go 4-4-2 no matter what club I'm at, because that's the formation that I like. Being pragmatic, I would imagine we'll go with the 4-2, with the one up front. And I would have Edwards in there and Judge. I don't know if Norwood's fit or not, to be honest with you. I'd imagine it would be Jackson leading the line again, but he's going to need support. That midfield is going to be having to push up a bit higher around him, and it's going to be second balls from goal kicks, things like that. It's going to be a scrappy affair, but I think they've got a good defence. Portsmouth. That Nicolaisen, he's a good player. I like the boy Curtis. I think he's good. Him and Kirk, for me, are two of the best wingers in the division. Sort of player that we could do with. But yeah, if they haven't got Marquis and Harrison, it's a really good time to play them, you would say. But at the same time, you've then got the Cowley bounce.
So, Curtis, who would you pick?
A lot of love in the game.
So, apologies for interrupting there. I think there's a bit of lag on my end, but I'm going to go to you, Curtis. Who would you pick in the starting lineup? Harrison Smith, of course, has put his formation on who he would pick. He chose 4-2-3-1, and he picked Cornell as the goalkeeper. Chambers, Toto, Wilson, Kenlock, Scouse and Bishop in midfield, with Lancaster, Parrott, Edwards and Norwood. So I'm going to go back to you, Curtis. Who would you pick to start against Portsmouth? And yeah, would you use a 4-2-3-1, or similar to Jamie, would you maybe go for a 4-4-2?
I think I want to go for a 4-4-2, but I think it's a case of I have to be realistic and know exactly what we're going to play. So I think I'd have to go for 4-2-3-1. Now, in regards to who plays that, I think you'd have to have Cornell starting. I think Holy he's done absolutely nothing to warrant keeping that shirt over the last few games. I would see Matheson in for Chamber at right back. You'd have to stick with Toto and Wilson at the back there, with Kevin Lock at left back. Scouse has to be there because he has to play the role that Downs plays. Now I'm hoping that the rustiness will be coming off very soon. Alongside Scouse, you'd have to say I think you'd have to say Giselle, because realistically I don't think Bishop offers that much. I would say Scouse Giselle in the middle, and then play Judge just ahead of them. Play Norwood as the lone striker up front. And then I think you'd have Edwards and Lancaster as your wingers for me, because I know Parrott's out with his international duty. I think that starts tomorrow, doesn't it? So I think he's out with there. And then I'd bring Jackson on, or possibly half time, tired legs, and his pace, which will help us massively. I don't think starting Jackson will help us in this situation.
So, Leigh, we're going to go to you finally before we get on to the quiz. Who would you start against Portsmouth, and what formation would you use? Curtis said a 4-2-3-1. Jamie said a 4-4-2. So, yeah, what formation would you use, and who would you start?
Well, I know Mr. Cook, I think he will go for a 4-2-3-1. But I would take out Holy, because he's been in a bad patch at the moment. So I'll take him out, put Cornell in goal, give him a chance, because he hasn't had much game time. He's only played in the FA Cup, the EFL Trophy, and of course the League Cup as well. So just try and give Holy a rest and put Cornell in goal. I have Mattison on the right-hand side, just to give him a run out, because he will have the legs. I'll put Chambers in the middle of centre-back with Wilson, and then Kennock on the left-hand side. For my middle two, I would have Dizelle, and I would have Carl Skews. I think Carl Skews will only play 45 minutes, and I think they'll probably change it at half-time because he's still rusty. So I think he'll start the game and then come off. I think Teddy Bishop will come on there. In front of that, I'll have Alan Judge in his rightful position because he's not good on the left-hand side. He's more better in the middle and the cam position. And then I'll have Edwards on the right and Lancaster on the left because they can cut in on their stronger foot and put the balls in, even go for goal. And if Parrott is on international duty, I would have Jackson in for him. Or if Norwood is fit, I would have Norwood up front to start with.
Absolutely perfect. And now it is, of course, time for the competition. All you simply need to do is put all of your answers in the comments, and we will pick whoever gets the most answers right as the winners. And for our guests today and those who've joined us actually on stream, you can take part as well. You can shout out your answers on the chat or on stream, of course, but of course, don't spoil it. So we're going to start off with this question. Of course, all the questions are going to be based on Ipswich. If you win, you'll be in a chance of winning some iFollow tickets. So question 1, and I'm going to repeat this 2 times as I won't be typing it down below on the chat. Due to the pandemic, we only saw 3 games of fans inside the stadiums. But can you name our opponents? And I'll read that one more time. Due to the pandemic, we only saw 3 games with fans inside the stadiums. But can you name the opponents?
Yes.
Okay, give me your opponents. I'm just waiting for the people to write it down below in the chat. So who were the 3 opponents we played?
Plymouth away, Portsmouth and Burton at home.
Okay, I think you've got that spot on, and so did ITFC Tweedy. So, So yeah, well done. And of course, question 2 is a slightly easier one. Who wears the number 11 shirt for our club? I'm gonna ask that again. Who wears the number 11 shirt for our club? Going to give it a couple of minutes for people to answer in the chat. And I assume you've all heard it, and you can always go back and listen to it via audio or simply on YouTube. Question 3, Luke Chambers moved to the club back in 2014, but can you tell us who was the captain before him? I'm going to read that again. Luke Chambers moved to the club back in 2014, but can you tell us who was the captain before him? Do any of you know? He was the captain before Luke Chambers. Earlier on, I was discussing this with Leigh. I said David Norris. So as it turned out, I was well off.
Good old Carlos, isn't it?
It's Carlos
Edwards, yes. And where does he play nowadays? Because, of course, the BBC were reporting on a wonder goal he scored the other day for a non-league club he currently plays for. This isn't a question for the quiz, by the way. Who is the club that he plays for nowadays? Do any of you know? Here's a clue. It also, the club also shares a name with a club who unfortunately went under. I don't know whether that's the best clue or not.
Bury.
Bury, yeah, he plays for Bury, and of course that wasn't a question for the competition.
It's Bury Town.
Bury Town. Awesome. So number 4, we started a league campaign this season against Wigan Athletic, and this is an easy one, but who scored for Town? And again, we started the league campaign this season against Wigan Athletic, but who scored for Town?
Did you get this right?
I did. I immediately got this right.
You did. Yeah.
And number 5, who was our top goal scorer from last season? And again, he was our top goal scorer from last season. Hopefully that's an easy one.
It should be.
And of course, we're going to ask 7 questions. So the final 2. Thank you all for getting involved. David Johnson scored 65 goals for us, but who did we sign him from? There were, of course, here's a fun fact. There were 2 David Johnsons who played for us. One David Johnson played for us in 1967, and we originally signed him from Everton. He was actually a great player for us. He made over 100 appearances for us, the original David Johnson. So we're going to move on to the final question. And hopefully this format has worked. Apologies if it hasn't. This is the first time we've ever done a competition like this. We will do more in the future, of course. Just let us know in the chat whether you like it or not. And of course, if you do, we'll carry on with them. So we want a tough one for the final question. Matt Holland played in goal in 1997-98, but who was it against? I'll ask that one more time. Matt Holland played in goal in 1997-98, but who was it against? And first of all, Leigh, was he a good goalkeeper? Did he have a good game that day?
Well, he only let in one goal and we won 5-2. So, yeah.
5-2?
Yeah, we won 5-2. Yeah.
Okay, so it was... So was he in goal for a majority of the game, or did he come on during the final 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think Richard Roy got injured in the first 20 minutes, I think it was, and then he came. He actually got, of course, substituted. Then, of course, he went in goal, and then unfortunately he let in one goal. But hey, we still won by 5-2, which is good.
Okay, Curtis. So if Thomas Early doesn't perform well for us for the rest of the season, would you have Matt Holland in goal?
Yeah, I think you have to go with someone who was pretty much near enough same height. I think you'd be looking at Judge, wouldn't you? You'd be having
Judge, yeah. God, imagine that.
Surely
somebody
in the chat's got it right, I think. Yeah. He's got it
Somebody
right.
in the chat has got it right. And that was the quiz. Hopefully it went well and hopefully you all enjoyed it. We will, of course, be doing another quiz if you did enjoy this next Sunday. And, of course, this is the end of the show. I just want to thank Jamie. Jamie's dropped out due to technical difficulties. I want to thank you, Curtis, for coming on. You've been a wonderful guest. We really appreciate having you on. And, of course, I want to thank Leigh as well, who is, of course, on every week. And you can join us again on Wednesday, Leigh and Di. Well, we will be joined this time by Gabriel Sarton. We won't have to cancel the show again. We will be talking about League One, the run into the end of the season. Of course, we're going to talk about the playoffs as well. And, of course, do we have a midweek game?
No.
We don't have a midweek game. So we won't talk about the midweeks. We'll talk about, the run-in to the playoffs. And that's a perfect way to end the show. RTFC Tweedy said tough questions. They were quite tough. I think I got them all wrong earlier, didn't I, Leigh? And Julian says great show. And of course, thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate it. You can find us on Twitter at WeFellowTheTown. You can find me on Twitter at Benarie. Leigh and Curtis, where can people find you on social media?
This Twitter at LSimons82. You can find me on that, or of course, We Follow the Town podcast.
And Curtis?
Okay. Find me at Yatesy's Tattoos. I'm sure I'll be on it at some point in the future, so yeah, you'll see more.
And how did you know, Dan?
Yes, he
Good
did.
guess. He did do the questions, and he baffled me earlier on when he tried to quiz me on them. Anyway, thank you very much for joining in. Join us on Wednesday for another packed show. We look forward to seeing you then.